Welcome to the Juice Bar. Today we are your servers. I'm Cassie,
And I'm Rebecca.
and today we're talking about the Orobashi and its effects on the land of Inazuma. So,
Because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of effects, and they're
there
not
are a lot of effects,
and they're not good.
a lot of bad effects, you know? Not
Yeah.
not those good effects. Not like the Avatar movie.
Oh, you mean like you mean like visual effects? I was thinking like cause and effect,
Yeah.
like back in high school.
No, I know. It was just like
Yeah, no, I get it. You made a
a
good
really
pun.
bad play on words.
Sorry, I'm out of it today.
No, it's
Anyway,
okay. Anyways, so basically on Twitter after the live stream was announced, a bunch of people were talking about dark Kokomi, and I was like, what the heck?
excuse me.
Yeah, I was like,
Wait,
what?
actually, at the same time, I think I may have seen some mention of that, like her being evil or something.
Yeah, like this was what sparked my dive into this whole lore thing. But basically, I was on Twitter, and like the live stream had just been announced for like Friday, and then some people were like, OMG, what if Kokomi is revealed to be like the villain or like evil or something? And I was like, why in the world why? I thought she was one of the good guys. And so I started looking more into it, and people were talking about how they think that she's trying to reawaken the Orobashi. And then so I looked up what the Orobashi was because I had already done the quest at this point, but I did not read any of the dialogue from it because that's how I am when I do quests for the first time, and then I go back and read
Yeah, my
quests.
problem is that I just don't do quests in general. So
Yeah, so
I only did this quest literally 2 days ago.
so I had to go back and like read up on the quest. And then I fell into this whole rabbit hole where I started researching all kinds of things. And so now I'm here to talk about it and like info dump it all onto you.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
sounds wonderful.
So
Lay it on me.
okay, so the first page of my 12 pages of notes.
Goodness, Cassie, why?
Because, like I said, there's a lot of information. There's even some stuff that I opted not to write down, and I just have the tabs pulled up on like Chrome that I can read off of. So, anyways,
Okay.
first thing I want to talk about is the history. What is the Orobashi? So the Orobashi, I hope I'm saying all these things right, because there's a lot of like Japanese, but the Orobashi is the serpent on which we are standing on the skull of. It is the serpent that like was slayed by the Raiden Shogun, and it's also called the Watatsumi Omikami. That's what the people from Watatsumi Island call it. It's also called the Great Serpent, and it is the god of the oceans. So before it became known as like the Watatsumi Omikami and like the Great Orobashi and stuff, it is said to have fled into the dark sea and met a group of abandoned peoples for whom it broke off its corals on its like back to give light to the children who were curled up in the darkness and to allow them to see the light of day. And basically it was because of this that Watatsumi Island was created. Watatsumi Island is like basically the island that Kokomi is from. It's the land of her people. And because of this, they now worship the Orobashi as like their great lord. It's like their god. They worship the Orobashi instead of worshiping the Raiden Shogun. And
Okay,
all of
I
this,
have a question.
Yes.
So you said that the Orobashi created the islands, right?
It
Or the
created
children
Watatsumi
of
Island.
darkness? What were the children called?
That's just what it says in like according to the Sangonomiya Chronicles, which is like this book that I think you get from the tea house with the Shiba.
Yes. I was just curious because
So the children of the darkness. So it mentions the Dark Sea, and the Dark Sea is where the Orobashi found these people, right? And I was curious what the Dark Sea meant. Apparently, it refers to the region beyond the protection of the Seven, and the Dark Sea is where a lot of defeated gods after the Archon War fled to, so that they could basically escape the rule of the Seven. And this is explained in the weapon ascension material description for a bit of Erosiderite. I hope I said that right.
is it like a sword or?
No, it's the weapon ascension material that you get. Yeah, I didn't
Gosh,
even
I don't
realize.
read weapon ascension material.
Me neither. I
like,
found it on the wiki. This stuff about like the coral and like how Watatsumi Island was created is also described in one of the Inazuma weapon ascension materials called like the the branches of a distant sea. Like, it's described in multiple different ones. But
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted more clarification because when you were like talking about the children of the darkness and how the Orobashi just found them, I don't know, I just had this weird mental image of like a bunch of fetuses like curled up at the bottom of the ocean, like in darkness, and
Yeah.
he just like brought them up
Yeah,
to the
when I
surface
hear
and was like, have an island.
when I hear darkness, I think of like the abyss and stuff. But it kind of makes sense if like
That too.
the dark sea refers to like the areas beyond the rule of the seven, then children of the darkness are basically the people that don't have the protection of like an archon.
Do you think that they're like the descendants of Conria?
No, I think that in this case it's just the descendants of like the people from Watatsumi. I guess they were too far from like Inazuma or like the mainlands of Inazuma.
So this doesn't have anything to do with Conria.
Or actually, so in somewhere else, I believe in the Sangonomiya Chronicles, it mentions that before the Orobashi came to, you know, save these people, Sangonomiya was described as an ocean abyss. So perhaps it does have something to do with like just the abyss itself, not necessarily Conria.
It could have been a part of an abyss, or not an abyss, but the abyss.
Maybe
one of the many abysses out there.
Yeah, maybe the abyss is just like underground. You know, it's like everything underneath the rest of the world. Because Conria is described as like an underground nation.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Interestingly, Inazuma has a bunch of underground places too.
Maybe this is like the ocean abyss or like just weird catacombs. But anyways, so the Archon War finished roughly like 2,000 years ago, and still basing this off the Sangonomiya Chronicles if you want to pull it up. The Archon War finished roughly 2,000 years ago, and it was after the Archon War that the Raiden Ogosho, the original Electro Archon, Raiden Ogosho, I keep saying Raiden, but Raiden Ogosho is just like another title for the Raiden shogun. It says that she brought all of Inazuma together under her rule, and anyone who like didn't agree with her like was annihilated. However,
wait, so Ogosho is it's the same title as shogun?
It's just like another title for like the same person. It doesn't necessarily mean shogun. It's just like the Raiden shogun and the Raiden Ogosho are like the same person. They're just different titles for the same person.
I knew that. I was just wondering what the difference between shogun and Ogosho was.
I have no idea what a Gosho means, to be honest. I'm guessing it's just another like Japanese title.
What does shogun mean?
I don't know. I'm not sure. This is
all right. I'm looking this up.
Yeah, you look up that stuff.
Okay, a Gosho means honorable, manipulate, and govern.
Oh,
that's what it says. And then
a
shogun is just a hereditary military leader who was technically appointed by the emperor.
I guess
also, when I typed in Japanese Ogosho on the side, Google thought it best to recommend me a hibachi and sushi place here in Athens. So,
did you say Japanese?
Yep. just wanted to make that known as well.
Just despite it saying that she basically annihilated anyone that like, you know, was not happy with her rule. The Orobashi was allowed to like remain just in the western region of Watatsumi, and basically Watatsumi and Narukami, which is like the main island with, you know, the Kitsune and the Sakura shrine.
Yes.
It says that they lived together in harmony until suddenly the Orobashi attacked. So the Orobashi, after a while, for some reason that is not explained in the book, it says that it suddenly transgressed the boundary and invaded the east without warning. And after this happened, both sides, so the people of Watatsumi that worship the Orobashi and the people of Narukami Island, you know, the people that worship the shogun, they fought on Yashiori Island until eventually the Orobashi was slain by the Raiden Ogosho. And after this, people from Sangonomiya sent envoys to surrender and officially recognized the Inazuma shogunate as the legitimate and supreme ruler. To me, that sounds like some like shogunate propaganda. This isn't important, but whoever wrote this sounded very pro-shogunate. And they are, because it says that it was written by famous shogunate Kujo Michizane. So...
Yeah, I was gonna say, it does not sound to me like Watatsumi Island is seeing the Archon as the legitimate and supreme ruler.
I don't think they think very highly of her.
Now here's my question. So you said that the Orobashi attacked without warning, and also that Watatsumi Island, their governing body is the Divine Priestess, which we know is Kokomi.
Yeah. They are the only island that does not have anyone from the shogunate.
So my question is, like, did the Orobashi at the time, did it still act of its own accord, or was like it answering to the Divine Priestess?
I think it was more like the Orobashi was the highest ruling order, I'm assuming, because considering it's the god, the Divine Priestess sounds more like she worships the Orobashi.
It does, but I
Yeah.
almost wonder if, like, as she was appointed that position of power,
Mm-hmm.
maybe she, like, and the Orobashi kind of got to work
Yeah.
hand in hand, and so, like, she kind of almost had control over the Orobashi in a way, like, had
It
it there, but
sounds, I don't know, to me it sounds more like kind of like Barbara's job, where she just like is literally like a priest, where she
Yeah,
just kind of worships
just someone
it.
who works under. So then in that case, the Orobashi truly was
It was like
the
it
one
seems
that
like it was
attacked.
like the leader. Yeah.
Did you think that Watatsumi Island had anything to do with it? Like, did they know?
No, it doesn't explain anything, but I did want to talk about some of that stuff. So in the Sangonomiya Chronicles, there were two things that stood out to me. The first one is that it literally has no explanation as to why the Orobashi invaded. And the second thing is that it's very ambiguous as to whether the current Raiden Shogun or the original Raiden Shogun was the one that slayed it. But as seen in the teaser trailer that came out, we can pretty much confirm that it is the current Shogun that is the one that killed it, because it does show it happening. And it also mentions that her cherished Tengu general, Sasayuri, was killed during this fight.
Yeah, and that was confirmed in the trailer.
Yeah, it also explains it in the Sangonomiya Chronicles. So here's the thing. The Orobashi died not long after the Archon War. I think this also happened roughly 2,000 years ago. So I've seen that perhaps the reason that it invaded Inazuma was due to the death of the original Archon.
Okay, so Raiden Shogun, the current one, it says that she brought all of Inazuma under her unified
the original
rule.
Shogun.
Oh, okay, wait, then I'm confused by the timeline then.
Yeah,
when
so
did our Raiden Shogun
so that's what I'm saying.
take the throne?
It's very ambiguous as to when the original Shogun died, because the original Shogun that won the Archon War is not the same one that is in the game now. But she had to have died before the Orobashi died. And so what I think is that the original Shogun somehow died, and that perhaps due to this, because Inazuma no longer had like an acting Archon, the Orobashi probably like invaded, perhaps to take the place of like the Archon, like to become like the new god that came over.
Okay, so you think that both the current Raiden Shogun and the Orobashi were looking to become the supreme ruler of Inazuma, and the Raiden Shogun won out against the Orobashi?
It is perhaps like I said, I don't actually know. It's just that there had to have been like some kind of like big event that triggered the Orobashi to invading, because it's like the Orobashi obviously didn't win an initial seat amongst the seven. That's why it probably went into the Dark Sea, where it met the people of Watatsumi, and created Watatsumi Island.
It makes sense. I agree that something clearly had to have happened.
Something had to have happened, and the original Shogun had to have died at some point before the Orobashi died. And I doubt that it'd leave out something important. Like if the original Shogun had died during this fight with the Orobashi, I feel like that's a huge detail to leave out. So I'm assuming it happened, she died before the Orobashi invaded and before this whole war started.
It makes even more sense if you look at the line that the masses bowed down in fear and awe, and each was content with their lot after she brought all of Inazuma under control. So like, it sounds like she being the leader is kind of what kept people in place, including the Orobashi and Watatsumi Island. So it makes sense that her death would have been the catalyst to cause things to go into an uproar again, as there was a new fight for power.
Yeah, it's like a power vacuum, because there's no acting head of Inazuma anymore, or at least there's no like officially seated one. So now everyone's fighting for like the power. And another thing is that, so what stood out to me, so Raiden is the god of eternity, and it's very funny to me that like if the original Archon was also the god of eternity, that she died like very soon after the Archon War, or that she died at all. Like this is like such a close timeline. Like these two events are so close together. I mean, part of it's because it's like very ambiguous as to when they happened, but like there's obviously not a lot of time between these two events. And it got me thinking that perhaps the original Archon doesn't have the same like ideal as the current one. And based off like the teaser trailer that they released for Raiden, like perhaps she took on the ideal of eternity because of what's happened in her life, and that wasn't the original one that the original Archon believed in. And one thing that
look like it
kind of supports this is that the original Dendro Archon was not the god of wisdom like the current one is. I forgot where it's mentioned, but the original Dendro Archon, they died during the Cataclysm, which is what destroyed Conria, and they were originally the god of the woods. I know that's only one example, but those two Archons, despite sharing the same element, they have different ideals or like different attributes that they are the god of. So perhaps it's the same for the Electro Archon. Archon. Maybe the original Electro Archon believed in something else.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
It also makes me wonder what power struggles were like in other countries. Because like up until this point, we've only been introduced to Mondstadt and Liyue, which are the only two countries that still have their original gods.
Yeah.
So
even in Mondstadt though, like when Venti Venti decided to just kind of take a step back and not be like an active Archon, and that was kind of what created the whole like power vacuum with the Lawrence clan, because the Lawrence clan took over and like a lot of bad things happened. So after the Orobashi died, it also describes Musujin Gorge, not in the Sangonomiya Chronicles, I don't think, but just across various sources in the game. The Raiden Shogun created Musujin Gorge on Yashiori Island after slaying the Orobashi, and it's like this rift that has like that poison purpley water. Like that's what that is. That's from the Orobashi. And after the Orobashi's death, it left behind this thing called the Tataragami, which is a curse that was laid upon the island of Yashiori, and it basically just causes like sickness and madness to like the people that come in contact with it, and it's what caused the storms that are over Yashiori Island, like the constant storm. It's obviously not there anymore because you did the quest, but like that's why it's there. And I also think that the Tataragami is like, I don't know if you've noticed, but like all of the enemies on Yashiori Island, they have like a smoke coming off of them.
Oh, no, I've noticed like a weird either purple or kind of
like this
blackish
black purple aura that's coming off of them. I'm pretty sure that's the Tataragami because it's like specifically on this island.
And it's mainly, it's not like the hilly churls have it as much. It's mainly either like treasure hoarders or like when you're fighting the samurai. Yeah. Because I think it's what's affecting people and driving them to madness.
And in another one of the weapon ascension materials, the golden branch of a distant sea, it's the Inazuma weapon ascension material, or one of them. It describes it as a curse that could never be extinguished. So it's like this constant aura on the island. To combat this and like to suppress the Tataragami, to make, you know, the island safe to inhabit, the people from Narukami created these 3 pillars or 3 wards to suppress the soul of the Orobashi and subdue the effects of the Tataragami. And this is explained in the Orobashi's legacy quest. And then another thing about the Tataragami is that despite them like suppressing the Tataragami, some people on these islands also created the Mikage furnace using the Tataragami. Yeah, in Tatara Tales, it talks about the Mikage furnace, and the Mikage furnace is like this famous plant that produces this stuff called jade steel, which is like some special material that's smelted with crystal marrow to be used for weapons, and it makes the weapons like super strong because the crystal marrow, you know, like the little crystals that you can find on these bones and whatever, it says it contains a sliver of the Tataragami's power. So I'm guessing it's like magical and like strong and stuff. And the Mikage furnace uses the power of the Tataragami to basically function and operate. And because of the war between the shogunate and the resistance, the Tataragami like energy is like oversaturated, and it caused the entire furnace to deactivate and malfunction. So this guy named Xavier, who is like the engineer that's just there, and for some reason he's not affected by the Tataragami. I don't know if that's like important, because he does point it out that he's like special like that.
He is from Fontaine, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. And then I don't know if it's important or if it's just so that they have a reason to have a guy that has the quest that can like talk to you without going insane.
Could just be for plot convenience.
Yeah, same thing with the guy from the Orobashi's legacy. Like, he's fine.
Yeah, he's the one that he's been there the whole time.
He's just chilling. Yeah.
And just hanging out, like, I don't know, every time you go up to him, if you haven't completed the wards yet, he's always just like, yeah, you should probably get out of here, you know? If it's too big of an order for you. Shouldn't stick around these parts. But he doesn't explain why he's okay.
So the Tataragami is used to power the Mikage furnace. That's just a little bit of history. So they're like taking advantage of this Tataragami.
So, but if the Tataragami is what's used to power the furnace, I know that they like stave off the effects using the wards, but does that also make the furnaces not run as well, or?
See, the Mikage furnace is located on a different island. The Mikage furnace is on Tatarasuno, which is the island next to Yashiori Island. So the wards are only on Yashiori Island. So I'm guessing that they're more like siphoning the energy from the Tataragami into like the furnace. So like the wards don't really suppress anything on Tatarasuna because they're so far away.
So maybe the Tataragami doesn't affect the other island as much just because it's not.
Yeah, because it's like not the source of it. Because the Tataragami is mostly its source is just on Yashiori Island, and they've like taken advantage of the power that it has and brought it to Tatarasuna to use for their furnace.
Mhm.
I don't know
Is
how because it's not
Yeah,
explained.
it's not explained.
Yeah.
What I want to know is it like an unlimited type of thing, or is there going to be a time where there's no more?
It does describe it as a curse that will never be lifted.
Well, then I guess that makes it seem like it'll
And I
always stick
think
around.
somewhere else in the game it describes the Tataragami as a constant source of energy. So I'm guessing it's more like a self-sustaining thing. So going on to present day. So I mentioned how like the wards suppress the Tataragami, and in Orobashi's legacy, the guy Kaji, that's his name, he mentions that people from Sangonomiya destroyed the wards that suppressed the Orobashi's soul, which caused the Tataragami to like spread over the entire island, and like it's what caused the constant storm. And as a result of this, everyone on the island has either fled or fallen ill or gone insane or straight up died. Yeah, so the goal of the quest is like repair the wards on Fort Fujito, Serpent's Head, and Jakutsu Mine. And it also mentions that due to the Tataragami's influence on the island, the battles between the shogunate and the resistance have stalled. So this is like the source of those dark Kokomi theories, because she is from Sangonomiya, and it mentions that people from Sangonomiya are the ones that destroyed the wards. And when I heard this, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because she's also like the grand strategist of the resistance.
Yeah, I was like, that sounds like a
good
terrible
strategy.
battle strategy. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrible for the people.
Yeah,
but it's stopping them from invading.
Yeah, like it keeps them from invading into like Watatsumi, because you know Yashiori Island is like the one island that's between the rest of the shogunate's land and, you know, the resistance base. Especially since the battle that, you know, we were a part of in the Archon quest happened on Nazuchi Beach, which is the beach that branches together Yashiori Island and the rest of Tatarasuna. And General Goro and like that guy Tepe that helped us, they also mentioned that like they're desperate for men, and like I think they're saying that they can't afford to be pushed back anymore. They can't afford to retreat any further. So by releasing the Tataragami, that prevents the shogunate from invading further, and it kind of stalls the fighting and like gives them a better chance. So it made a lot of sense to me, and I was like, yeah, you know, that sounds like it's plausible. But then I found this thing. It's this waterlogged note, and it's located, I believe, at the ward at the Serpent's Head. And it contains detailed instructions on how to destroy the wards according to methods by Mr. Nathan of the Resistance. And this Mr. Nathan is actually just an NPC that you can talk to, and he's originally from Mondstadt, and he came to Inazuma and decided to join the Resistance because he believes in freedom. So he wants to fight for freedom for them. And then it also mentions that they're doing this to restore the dignity of our great Omikami, which is what they call the Orobashi. And it says not a word to anyone, not even Her Excellency, the Divine Priestess. So they're keeping this a secret from Kokomi, which to me seems like pretty solid proof or evidence that she had no idea any of this was happening. Like this was happening behind her back, and that just people within the resistance made this rash decision that had terrible consequences.
Well, okay then.
I mean, it's possible that like she got someone else to pass on this information, but like to me that seems really unlikely. It seems like a lot of hoops to go through, because they make it a point that like they can't let her know, and that if any of this information was to get out, they have to make sure that everyone knows that it wasn't her idea. Like they don't want any of the blame to fall on the rest of the resistance and on Kokomi. To me, it sounds pretty unlikely that she was the one instigating all of this.
I agree. It doesn't sound like it.
To me, it sounds
either way
like,
though. I still like Kokomi.
I like Kokomi too. I feel like this was just done by some Orobashi fanatics, you know? Like,
yeah, they sound a little bit insane.
Yeah.
Like
a little, you know, rash decision making. It sucks for all the people on these islands.
Yeah, it really sucks when you consider
would not want to live here. I know.
Yeah.
I feel really terrible for these people. So, speaking of these people that have suffered, I'm going to talk about the cases of the Tataragami that are described throughout the game. So the first one that I want to talk about is the Lost Texts, for anyone that doesn't know. It's a series of like little notes and documents that are scattered across, I believe, just on Yashiori Island. And it's told from the perspective of a Kujo samurai, and it describes a bunch of Kujo soldiers as they like investigate the Tataragami and eventually like succumb to its effects. So the first note is at Fort Fujito, and it mentions how like the front line has been badly traumatized, likely because of the Tataragami, and that Lord Masahito, who is like the leader of the Kuju like military, he describes like the chaos that's caused by the Tataragami, and the clan head is angry because I guess he just doesn't believe that it is so strong as it is, and he tells Lord Masahito to pull himself together and crush that hive of rebel scum. And then he mentions that, like, otherwise, if he doesn't do it, that he's considering demoting Lord Masahito from his post as general and assigning Lady Sara. So I'm guessing that happened because Sara is the general now.
She is.
And Masahito is an NPC, and I think he's just chilling at the Kuju encampment base. So
yeah, I remember him.
He is, for just context, he's Sara's brother. She's adopted, though, and then he's the older brother of Kamaji, the guy that got the love letter from Chisato, the girl from the beginning of the Inazuma quests. They're related. Not that that's important. Just some extra information. The next text is located at Higi village. It describes how people have begun to go missing and that a lot of villagers have like left the village, I guess, but the village chief has yet to leave. So he's still there, and he actually comes into play later. Oh, I just also now realized that there's this guy named Gongozaemon who is described as the best swordsman amongst these Kujo soldiers, and I remember his name. This was not in my notes, I just now recognize the name. So anyways, the next note is at Musujin Gorge, and it describes how the guy that's writing these things, he's getting like a nosebleed, and he feels dizzy and weak. And he also mentions that someone else named Kanemoto reported that he saw a kid on the island and that perhaps we should capture him and have him show us the way.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, is that kid gonna be Choji?
I have a feeling that it is.
Or the kid that's just named Kid, because he seems to pop up just about everywhere in the island.
The kid that has like the games.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's that kid.
It doesn't really make sense, like, story-wise, but it creeps me out how that kid is, like, everywhere.
I think it was just, I find it funny that they used that kid as, like, an excuse to put a mini game just all over the place. Like, they could have easily put, like, an adult or something there, but no, they just...
I think we should talk about the lore behind Kid.
Kid. He's, like, Kid Kujirai or something, right?
Yeah, he is. Actually, he's usually standing inside the serpent head. We could probably go find him.
Yeah, he's at the bottom. He's, like, probably below our feet right now, because he's in the mouth of the serpent's head. Yeah, so I think that kid is Chuji, but who knows? Maybe it is the kid with the Tamari ball. That did come to mind when I read it. I mean, those are the only two kids here.
True.
And then at the end of this note, the guy describes that he has a nightmare. And in that dream, the small island in the Western Sea was submerged by quicksand. That is an evil sign. So when I read this, I was like, I wonder what island he's talking about. Because the first thing that came to mind was Watatsumi, because it's in the far west. But it's not a small island. I'm imagining that it's pretty big. And I'm pretty sure it's been described as, like, not small. But then I remembered Fort Mumei, which is, like, the place that you go to at the end of Orobashi's legacy. And it's this sunken area that when you do the quest, it like rises out of the water. So I was like, maybe that's what it's referring to. Maybe he has like a nightmare about that because of things that I will get into. So then the next note is found on the serpent's head. And the guy basically just describes more pain. He says that his head hurts, that he has a rash on his skin, and his chest is itchy and damp. And just he says that like, the Tataragami, like, it's not just a rumor. We have to tell the clan head. Then there's this part where he says, the skull of the great serpent god is staring at me ferociously. Its wretched spirit still holds hatred towards the victor's people. I must leave here as soon as possible, or the consequences will be hard to imagine. Just bad things. Bad things are happening.
Yeah. Bad things.
Bad thing. And the final note is located at Fort Mume, which is where these people finally succumb to the effects of the Tataragami. And this guy, I'm just going to read the whole note because it's kind of nonsensical. He says, 1 tooth, 2 tooth, 3 teeth, something black oozed out of them. The black waves, the treasure is here. Itchy, it's so itchy. Kanemoto lost the bet. Suzuno's sword is still here. I still have some food. My skull feels itchy. No, I don't want my ears to grow inside my head. I don't want to listen to his voice. My apologies, clan head. The treasure is mine. I am melting into his whisperings.
Who is his? Sounds creepy.
Who is his?
Yeah.
Not him. So that's what I was wondering. So my first thought was that it's the Orobashi, or like its spirit. But here's the thing. Up
That's
until
what I was thinking.
this point, every time the Orobashi is spoken about, it's always spoken about in a genderless way. Like, it's never referred to as he or her. It's always just like it, or like the great serpent. It has no gender. So it might just be an oversight, or maybe a translation error. But I just thought it was kind of weird that, like, they always describe this, like, him, and a little off topic, but whenever I saw, like, his and stuff, for some reason, my brain thought of, like, that villain from the Powerpuff Girls, who's literally named, like, him. He's, like, the lobster devil looking guy who, like...
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, like, the lobster devil looking guy that's, like, wearing a Mrs. Claus dress. That's what I thought of. That has nothing to do with this, what we're talking about.
Powerpuff Girls villain made its way into Genshin.
It's him. Yeah, so like I said, it could also just be like a translation error. But yeah. Another thing that stuck out was like the something black that oozed out of the teeth, I guess. And then it mentions black waves. And I'm wondering if that's like a reference to like the Black Sea. Like saying like there is no like Archon, there's no god here, you know, like your Archon is powerless here. Also, black is just like symbolically an evil color.
Symbol, yeah.
But going back to the he, I think that perhaps it's not the original soul of the Orobashi, perhaps like a corrupted version of it. Like over time, its soul and the Tataragami have corrupted to create like this twisted consciousness, which
Are
is...
you talking about like what's similar with what happened to Aztaha? Like
kind of, yeah. Actually, like with multiple things. The things that I was thinking about was how like the Sakura cleansing ritual quest, basic rundown, and I'm sorry that these are spoilers, but basically that quest is talking about the Saigu Kitsune, or the Kitsune Saigu. I don't know which way the name goes. One of the friends of Raiden that's in the trailer. Yeah, so basically during the cataclysm, like she got like kind of like, I don't know if I want to say corrupted, but basically her body broke down into like filth, and due to this, like I'm just gonna refer to it as a corruption, it created a new consciousness named Kazari, which was formed out of the filth that was left over. So it's not the same person as the original Kitsune Saigu, but it's like created out of like the remnants of her memories. So I'm wondering if maybe that's kind of what's happening to the Orobashi. Like the Tataragami has become corrupted over time and has created this new like kind of consciousness that's like more twisted and like evil. That's my theory, or like how I'm thinking. Because it's also, this isn't just the only case either. Like you mentioned with like Ajdaha, I don't know how to say his name. And then like with the dragon on Dragonspine, Durin, he was corrupted.
Yeah, that's true.
And then Dvalin was corrupted as well. Like we had
What
to
is it with all of these
him.
Like mythical beasts and being corrupted?
They're just getting sick. This is their equivalent of like the plague. It's the Black Plague.
Maybe it is just a direct effect of the fact that the abyss is around.
Yeah, I think it might just be because like the abyss is becoming more powerful. That's like the whole thing behind why Dainsleep is there. Yeah.
That's another topic for another day.
I know, and more topics to discuss. Oh, also it mentions something about a treasure, and I thought that might be important, but then I realized that like reading all these texts just spawns a chest there, so I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like that's just because...
I feel like that's just a hint at like, hey,
yeah, chest.
So, next thing I want to talk about in terms of the cases of the Tataragami is Mr. Washizu. So Washizu is this guy who he's standing kind of near where we are now. He's just standing at this outsider shrine near the Magu Kenki, and basically, when you walk up to him, he just tells you about like him. Like he says he is unhappy, he is displeased with the disturbance caused by words of tongue, which drown out the wisdom of the words of the heart. And then he just keeps describing like this person, like he is listening, he is speaking, and he tells you to like worship the shrine. And when you pray to it, or 3 times, like each time it'll say like something, and then you try to listen, but nothing happens. And you can do it 3 times a day. And after doing it 3 times, you can talk to him again. And he says some other stuff about, you know, him, like he is comforted, like his reward is not on yonder shore, it is tomorrow. And then when you come back the next day, a chest will appear. And you can do this for multiple days. And each time it spawns a chest the following day. And he has new dialogue every day. So most of it's like very nonsensical, and like he sounds insane. This part isn't considered a quest. It's just some random interaction that you can do. So each day he kind of gets more crazy, where like he keeps telling you like listen to him and let him listen to you. He just keeps telling you to pray, and like he sees and hears everything because he is strong. Thus he sees all there is, hears all that there is. And then he also describes neither the fools in Sangonomiya nor the madmen of Narukami Island understand it, feel it, so all they know is to fight each other and let the blood blind their eyes. And this further makes me believe that like whoever he is that they're referring to is like not the original soul of the Orobashi, because the fact that it doesn't differentiate between the people on Sangonomiya versus the people under the shogunate,
that doesn't really make sense for the
like
Orobashi.
if it was just the original Orobashi, I feel like he'd be on the side of his people. But whoever this he is has like no side. He has like his own motives and that we don't really know yet. So on the 3rd day, he says like, he is coming, don't stop worshiping. He is coming, he is sullen, like his anger shall soon burst forth. And then he's just like kind of yelling, not at us, but like in general. And he says, and why? Why? Because of that woman, the one who refuses to pay tribute, the evil one. She flees even now, but how can she escape? 18 pairs of blood-red eyes, thousands of sharp venomous fangs, countless mouths and numerous tongues, ever thirsting after blood. She can't hide, she can't hide. Ah, the desert nation of arid sentiment, and you, the foolish beggar who hides in the forest, claiming to be wise. None of you can protect her. And then he just tells you to go worship the shrine, and I'm gonna come back to that. So on the 4th day, he starts saying how like he presided over every sacrifice and accepted every one of your blessings, and he's talking to whoever he is. And then he says, but she who branded you, established by her hand, has fled from your blessings. She has betrayed us. And then he says he shouldn't doubt his choice, and then says that he has to continue to endure and worship and stuff. And it is at this point, this is the final day, that you can like pray. As you're praying to the shrine says, Washizu is still muttering to himself and he doesn't look well. The shrine is still unresponsive. Perhaps this is all a scam. You try to listen, but nothing happens. And then the shrine tells you, watch out behind you, and yells, watch out. And this is what triggers the quest Sinister Introduction, where Washizu basically attacks you and says the time has come for sacrifice.
Well, damn.
Oh, ye who accommodates all things, accept me, consume me, save me. And you have to fight this guy, and you end up killing him, I'm guessing, because after you defeat him, you like never see him again. And then he like drops some papers, and you have to go find some like documents or something. And this leads you to Higi village.
Okay,
So,
I was gonna ask.
Yes.
Is the guy, that does all this, the one that you end up fighting and killing, is he the person that Choji is, whatever his name is? I forgot already. But is he the one that he's referring to, where he's kind of creepy, always by that shrine?
yeah. Basically, after you finish the quest, after you kill him, and then you go into Higi village, it takes you to a chest that you can dig up. And next to this chest, there's a thing that you can interact with called the Incomplete Registrar. And it's at this point that you realize that Washizu is the Higi village chief, or at least he was before he went insane. And going back to the lost texts of those soldiers that went crazy and died, the text from Higi village describes how the village chief never left the village. And you find out that this is what happened to him, that he went insane. And reading this registrar is also very unsettling. It's basically a log of everyone in the village and who like fell ill and who died and like what happened to them, like their age and everything. And the way it's written, it seems like it was initially written when he was still sane and he was just kind of trying to keep track of his villagers and how they were doing. But then it slowly deteriorates into something more sinister. So it starts off saying basic stuff like Torajiru, 13 years old, took ill and died. And a lot of them just say took ill and died, which is very sad. Then, like halfway through reading it, it says nameless passerby A, sacrificed. Gongazemon, 30 years old, question mark, sacrifice. And Gongazemon is the name of the sword guy from the Lost Texts. And it mentions in the Lost Text that Gongazemon is the best swordsman among us and was still in fairly good shape. So he was dispatched to confront the village chief about whether he's hidden any deserters. So far, he hasn't returned. So
because he was
we find out he was sacrificed. And then another name from the Lost Texts. Immediately after this, it says Yamato was sent to issue a warning. And guess whose name pops up in the incomplete registrar? Yamada. 23 years old, sacrificed. Then the next part.
It's not funny, but it's
not funny, but and yet here we are laughing. Okay, this next part takes another turn. It says Senshiro, 4 years old, returned to oneness. Senshiro's mother, around 25 years old, returned to oneness. Akiharu, 23 years old, summoned. So I don't think these people were sacrificed, or at least not killed in the same way that the previous people were. I don't know what Akiharu summoned means, but following this, it says the possessions of the aforementioned people shall be left here as a lure, all the better to provide living sacrifices for his return. And then the last part of this, it says Chuji's mother, around 32 years old, missing. He is pleased with her, and thus she must be found. Nameless outlander, seemingly young, about to take the bait. And that's just referring to us. I don't know what bait we're about to take. But going back to Chuji's mother.
Okay, I was going to ask.
Yes.
In the quest, or well, not the quest, but, you know, when you're talking to the guy and you're getting his dialogue, and he talks about how there's one person, a she, who is, like, run away.
Mm-hmm.
Is that referring to the mother?
I'm pretty sure that it's referring to the mother. I'm, like, 99% sure. Because of other things that pop up.
Yeah, I know she left behind her kid, but like, I don't. It's a creepy situation that she was in. Like, if she knew that she was. And I'm not sure why she didn't take him with her, but.
Okay, I'm gonna get into the whole thing about Chuji's and his mom in a bit, but basically, Chuji's mom, she for some reason is unaffected by the Tataragami. And this comes up later. But going back to what Washizu says when he's like going insane when you're like praying to the shrine, he mentions something about like she flees even now, but how could she escape him? 18 pairs of blood-red eyes, thousands of sharp venomous fangs, countless
that sounds like a creepy monster.
Yeah, it sounds like a description of whatever he's trying to summon, whatever he's trying to bring to life, like whatever voice is in his head, like. And going back to Chuji's mom and Chuji himself, I think that whatever he wants to do to them might be what happened to this Senshiro and Senshiro's mother. Because unlike the others, it doesn't say sacrifice. It says return to oneness. Maybe perhaps like the oneness of whatever monster he's trying to create or summon.
You mean like he's trying to fuse people together?
Or more like if these people, if Senshiro is like the same situation as Chuji and his mom, where like they're kind of unaffected by the Tataragami. Perhaps it's like their bodies can withstand the Tataragami's influence. So if he were to summon this being, like the soul wouldn't just break down the body. This is some really messed up logic that I'm trying to pull together.
Yeah.
But just the fact that this doesn't say sacrificed is weird to me. It says return to oneness.
It stands out.
Uh-huh. And then the one after, Akiharu, 23 years old, summoned. I'm wondering if it's something similar to like, you know those like lightning swords, how like they have like the souls of like old samurai. I'm wondering if like he's like, I'm not saying it's that, but like something similar where he's like summoning like these old spirit things, like maybe summoning whatever, or attempting to summon whatever this voice is. I don't know, but that part really confuses me. And I don't really know what it means as like the possessions are left as a lure, but maybe it's like I don't know, like a lure for the souls. I don't know. Or to lure in more sacrifices, like if someone comes looking for them, that would lure in more people, you know? I don't know.
This he does say that he wants to leave things behind.
Yeah. This whole situation is like very creepy and like insane.
I agree.
Because Washizu also mentions that he wants to find a sacrifice for the returning. So he's clearly trying to like bring something back.
Yeah, I just want to know what it is. Like, what is the creature? What is him?
Again,
you think it's the Orobashi?
I don't think
But
it's
like a
like the
different
original
consciousness?
Orobashi. Yeah, I think it might be like a corrupted version of the Orobashi because there are multiple points in different various quests and stuff where it describes the Tataragami as like corrupt or like corrupted Tataragami. So I'm like wondering if maybe it has become corrupted over the years. So yeah.
That's an interesting theory.
So moving on from the incomplete registrar, Washizu, when you kill him, he like drops some papers. And one of them is this thing called the incomplete notes. And it's written, I believe, like before he goes insane, because it just describes the events that are happening in Higi village. So he mentions that like everyone's scared of the Tataragami and that as the village head, he feels like it's his responsibility to deal with it. And he says that a lot of people have started to fall ill. And then he mentions this guy named Yasumoto and calls him a fraud. So he says that all he does is boil lavender melon with sugar, which has no medicinal properties. And he seems like a waste of space and can't be trusted. So this guy Yasumoto he's another NPC that has a different class where you have to give him the Naku beads. Yeah, so he's a traveling doctor that travels and ended up in Higi village.
Yes,
and
I remember him.
I'll come back to him in a sec. But the other paper that Washizu drops is a thing called tattered paper, and he mentions how like the village's only doctor has gone insane, probably from the Tataragami, and that they had to tie him up and lock him up in a cellar, and that all they can do is like pray and hope that the shogun hears their pleas. And he mentions that he has to gather everyone to the shrine to pray, and that he's struggling with his own powerlessness because like as the leader he wants to do something more. And then he mentions Chuji's mother and how she prays at the shrine every day, and it says, is it because of her illness or for her husband? So some background, Chuji's dad is like a miner and he is supposedly dead because I mentioned his like gravestone, that they're preparing his gravestone or something, and she refuses to believe that he's dead. And it also mentions that even though she's unaffected by the Tataragami, she does have something going on with her, which again I'll describe in a bit. And then it mentions this guy that's named Shingo, who it says that he heard the word of God, and then Washizu says that it's absurd. And then eventually he goes crazy and attacks Chuji's mom, and they had to lock him up as well. And then Washizu mentions that he keeps hearing voices, loud voices, a constant drone. Maybe I just need to rest. I've not had a proper night's sleep in days. My auditory hallucinations aren't getting any better, and I've got a terrible headache. And I think at that point is where he starts going insane. Yeah. So going back to the guy named Yasumoto, the traveling doctor that comes in after their village doctor lost it. So like I said, he has his own quest where you can give him Naku weeds for 3 days.
Yeah, I did that quest.
Yeah. So you have to give him 12 Naku weeds for like 3 days in a row, like real life days.
Yeah.
And the reason he asks for Naku weeds is because he's trying to develop medicine or something. And I believe that upon like doing the quests like every day, you can get these little pages out of a pharmacist's notebook. And these are just written by him. So the first day, the first notebook, it's located on Fort Fujito near the waypoint or something. Basically, it just describes that like because he's unable to actually like cure the people who have fallen ill, he makes sweet lavender melon soup because care is also a form of remedy. So I guess he's like, if I can't actually heal them, I can at least make them feel better, which is just sad. That is an explanation as to why he doesn't actually have any medicine.
Because there's nothing but you can do.
Yeah, Washizu calls him untrustworthy and a fraud.
Now
the second notebook says, a woman came to me for help. She seems to be a relative of one of the miners. However, her conditions were extremely unique, and my medicinal abilities aren't sufficient to establish a diagnosis. All I can do is come up with this theory based on my instincts. It seems that the energies of the Tataragami did not corrupt her. Instead, they flow freely inside of her. The patient's mind and body were not affected, but the consistent fever and small amount of occasional bleeding are extremely hard to control. And you find out that this is Chuji's mom, because it mentions later on in the note that she has a child by the name of Chuji. So because he can't cure her, so obviously she's not actually like corrupted by the Tataragami, but he says that it flows freely inside of her. So it's like in her and like it's a part of her, but it's not actually like driving her insane or causing her to be extremely ill.
Wait, like, seriously though, where is she bleeding from?
I don't know. It doesn't describe where. It just says occasional bleeding. She just occasionally gets like nosebleeds or something.
I don't
Who
know.
knows? So he can't cure her. So he says that perhaps only the hospitals in Sumeru will have a cure for this. Since, Sumeru is like the land of wisdom and it
So
has
that's
a lot
why
of
she
scholars.
runs off to Sumeru.
So he mentions how he gives her directions and tells her where she can find the pirates to take her, and specifically mentions a guy named Uncle Onitaka who will be willing to help her. And I didn't really mention this before, but in a bunch of random notes, like the lost texts, they mention pirates in almost every single one of them. Like it just describes like there's
I
pirates
noticed
on the
that
beach.
too. And I noticed that the
yeah.
pirate notes talk a lot about the soldiers as well. It was kind of like they're on opposite sides, like telling the same story, but like
Yeah, like
ones.
different perspectives. So I feel like the pirates that are mentioned are like maybe these pirates. So he sends her off to go find Uncle Onitaka, and then at the end it mentions Chuji and that she asked Yasumoto, the doctor, to take care of him. And he says, I will take good care of him once this is all over, but I can't go to find him right now. It's not the right time yet. I don't know what he's waiting for.
Yeah, I was like, what does that even mean?
Like, what is
Is he waiting for the skies to clear up?
I have no idea. Like, it makes no sense. Like, what has to be over? Why can you not go help this child? I get maybe he's waiting until he can make a cure, because he is trying to develop medicine, but like, I don't know.
Is he not affected, or is he just affected more slowly because he keeps trying random medicines on himself?
I have no idea. It doesn't describe him having any symptoms, really.
But he also is like trying out a bunch of different medicine.
So maybe he is like staving it off.
The effects.
Yeah. So the third notebook on the last day mentions the traveler. It says an outlander with a chatty little fairy arrived on the island, and they came at a really bad time.
Yeah.
Which he's not wrong.
Yeah, we did.
We did come at a pretty bad time. And then he mentions that thanks to like our help, like he has been able to research more smoothly and it's gone really well. And then he says that he'll travel to the southern shoals of Yashiori Island to test the effects of medicine once more. But this time I will be using the full dose. Whatever happens, I want to thank everyone for their help. And he disappears. After that,
awesome.
you don't see him again. So
I wonder what happened.
He may have perished. Perhaps the medicine did not help him. Yeah, so he's gone. Gone where?
If these NPCs are just like, we're here for the quest. As soon as the quest is done with, bye.
And they're dropping like flies.
You're never gonna hear from me again.
Yeah.
And that's why Chuji's still alone on the island.
Going
sucks
over
for Chuji, really.
No, I felt so bad for him. Like at first I was like, man, you little scam artist, give me back my crystal mirrors.
I know, but the more you hear about him, you're like, this poor kid has absolutely nothing.
I know.
Nobody around him.
I feel so terrible for him.
What do you expect? He's trying to survive.
Alrighty, now it's on to the pirates' notes. These are, I think they're scattered on like the Nozuchi beach. I don't know particularly where. Also, they're not actually like numbered or anything, like in the game. So I'm just going off the numbers on the wiki page. So the first one, which is just called Pirate's Note, it mentions like, we've been entrusted with looking after the lad named Chuji. Uncle Onitaka, the guy that's helping his mom, told us to take care of him before setting sail. And they say that they'll do it once they deal with like some samurai on a broken boat.
What is it with everybody like not going to help the kid?
I don't know. So also the samurai on a broken boat, he's also mentioned that this isn't important, but he's mentioned in a different pirate note, and it's this guy. He's another NPC, and I'm pretty sure that he's sick with something.
Oh, I know exactly.
And then there's a different quest where you
just
give him medicine, and then he's okay, which isn't important. But
we were so cheeky to him though. Like Traveler,
the Traveler was getting so sassy.
Yeah, Traveler is. Okay, sorry.
They've had enough. So the second Pirate's Diary, or the first one, is Pirate's Diary number 1. I didn't really think it was that important. It just mentions like the shogunate fighting, and then they call them shogunate numbskulls. So kind of unimportant to me. The second Pirate's Diary, however, it says a miner came here and he looked awful. We let him stay here for a few days and he recovered decently. It seems that his wife and his son are still on the island, but he rejected our offer to help him find them, and instead he thanked us and just left. What a strange man. I think this guy
Gee, I
is
wonder who
Chuji's
that-
dad.
I mean, who
So-
could that be?
A guy who's a minor
Who is
with a
Iron
wife and a
Minor?
son. It confuses me that he just like leaves. Like it says that he thanked us and just left.
Dude,
Like,
nobody acts normal on this island.
Mhm. He doesn't go to find his wife or child. He just leaves.
Maybe he's also sick and he's not thinking straight. Or maybe
Perhaps.
something happened to him.
Because the end of this diary mentions that Brother Takano has a high fever that won't abate. Many of us have been awakened by nightmares in the middle of the night. Everyone's on tenterhooks, and we're not feeling too great. Is it a seasonal thing? I'm wondering if this is the effects of the Tataragami, like spreading.
It's gotta be.
But according to the rest of these pirates' diaries, nothing too terrible happens to these guys, which good for them.
Pirates are made of strong stuff, you know?
It's that vitamin C.
I
Anyway.
thought you were making a pun, like, because they're on the sea.
No, I was
Vitamins C.
thinking like legitimately, like, you know, they have to eat citrus to stave off scurvy. Anyways, Pirate's Diary number 3. It mentions that Uncle Onitaka is sending people to Sumeru, which likely includes, I mean, it definitely
The
includes
mother.
Chuji's mom. I don't know if he's met her at this point yet, or if he's just planning to send people to Sumeru, and then she also just pops up like, hey, I too need a ride. And then they also mentioned that there was a naval battle and blah blah blah. They just say that it's a good opportunity to scavenge the loot from the broken ships.
Can I just say, I
Uh-huh.
find it interesting that 2 times now, a lot of our lore has revolved around, like, a single child. Like, being at
These
the
children.
center of,
Uh-huh.
like, a greater scheme. Like,
Uh-huh.
parents are missing, going somewhere else or traveling, and I just think it's
Chuji.
strange.
Dong dong. all coming together.
I miss Dong Dong. We don't know where Chuji's father is. We don't know where Dong Dong's father is.
I mean, we know that like Dong Dong's dad is probably like somewhere in Inazuma.
Yeah, but we haven't seen him yet.
Maybe one day, like after we've gone to all of the nations, we'll find him in like Conria. He's like traveled all this way.
He's the final boss. Okay.
He is in the Saritsa. Okay, so Pirate's Diary number 4. This one also is kind of unimportant. However, at the end, it mentions how, like, if the war between the shogunate and Sangonomiya continues, and we continue to plunder, perhaps the great age of piracy might soon be revived. We shall be like Dameki 500 years ago. And Dameki,
Who?
I don't know if you remember this name.
It sounds so familiar, but
It is the name of the pirate chief from the Echoing Conches.
Mako
Zoomies?
Domeki.
I think we should call them zoomies.
Zoomy.
That's
The
how you should
zoomies.
refer to people from Inazuma as zoomies.
I like it.
oh, Vicky, wait, it brings it back.
It's coming full circle.
We're full circle.
This was unimportant to whatever I'm talking about. I just thought it was a fun callback.
That is a fun callback. Man, I kind of miss the islands too.
Uh-huh.
I enjoyed researching this conches.
The last Pirate's Diary is also kind of unimportant. It's just that they're saying that they got a band together in the face of the Raiden Shogun's wave sundering blade. Then after that are these things called the incomplete notes, which I can't tell if this one was written before or after the first note, the pirate's note, but it says Uncle Onitaka set sail to send a woman away. According to her, the situation on the island is very bad indeed. Pretty sure this is referring to Chuji's mom. And then it mentions like a ship and that there is a samurai on a broken boat. So the guy from the first note again. And then it says like, we'll get him for sure. So it seems like this one could have been written before the first one. So all this to say, Chuji's mom is gone. She's on her way to Sumeru, to greener pastures. And it does mention in Washizu's like ramblings, it seems like he knows that she ran off to Sumeru because
Yeah, I was gonna say he
Yeah.
mentioned her.
he
going
mentions
there.
the desert nation of arid sentiment. And then it says like, none of you can protect her. So I feel like that's a little creepy. Like she might
Sounds
not
like-
be able to be cured. Who
Yeah,
knows?
that's what I was gonna say. It sounds like whatever she's got inside of her, it's not gonna be. They're not gonna have a way to
Yeah.
get rid of it.
So before moving on to Chuji, because that's the next thing that I want to talk about,
Yeah.
going to Chuji's mom. So she went to Sumeru for a cure. And when I was looking at these wiki pages, someone in the comments mentions how it's kind of similar to this thing that happened in the Genshin Impact manga with a character
The
named
manga.
Kole. But basically, in the manga, there's this character named Kole, and she's a young girl, who is probably one of the main characters in the manga. And when she was born really sickly, and her parents brought her to like this guy named Barnabas, and he looks really creepy, and begged him to save her. And he says that she's been touched by a div, which I don't know what it is in Genshin terms, but in real life, a div refers to like a satanic giant in Persian culture. So, not good things happening. And this guy works with the Fatui, so rather than saving her, he gives her to one of the other harbingers named Harbinger Dotor, and he runs a bunch of crazy experiments on her using stuff called Archon residue. And I have no idea what the heck Archon residue is because this is the only time it's ever mentioned. It doesn't
Maybe
go into detail as
something
to what
like-
it is.
I don't know, some kind of like raw power from the gods.
I have no idea. Probably like a concentrated version of the power, but like somehow in a physical form. For some reason, I'm imagining like goop. Yeah, so anyways, after these experiments, it doesn't explain what happened to her. Kole, like, escapes from the Fatui and eventually finds herself in Mondstadt. It also mentions that as she travels, that she was treated really poorly and that people, like, throw rocks at her and, like,
Well, geez.
yeah, so basically she just hates people in general. And so she ends up in Mondstadt, and, well, you see that as she's traveling, like, when she gets very angry, this Archon residue that's, like, inside of her comes out and creates this, like, black serpent creature that kills, like, 2 people or something. And this incident is called like the Black Fire incident, and you find that like she has something inside of her, probably the Archon residue, and whatever the thing with the div was at the beginning, like being touched by something evil. By the end of the manga, she has some people from Sumeru come to perform a ritual on her, and I don't know if they like really cleanse her, but they basically subdue whatever evil is inside of her so that it doesn't like affect her anymore, like it doesn't come out. They basically like seal away this power, but I don't know if they actually like, get rid of it fully. And just this whole situation kind of reminds me of Chuji's mom.
Yeah, it does sound similar.
Just
Also,
sounds
the black snake
interesting.
sounds kind of like a description of the monster.
I know.
that-
Yeah, like looking
the
at
head
the
of the
picture,
clan.
but it's like this black purple smoking snake. And the Tataragami, like the smoke that's like in or on all of the people on Yashiori Island, like it's always like black and purpley. So it really does like feel similar. So I'm wondering if like maybe Archon residue and like the Tataragami, maybe it's like corrupted like powers of the gods.
Oh, yeah.
Alrighty, so moving on from Kole, I just want to talk about Chuji for a little bit. And a lot of stuff has already been explained throughout this night, but just, pulling some things together. So Chuji, like his mom, he's not affected by the Tataragami, or at least he doesn't seem to be affected. Like, he seems to have his thoughts together. He's just kind of chilling alone. And when you talk to him during the quest, he says that his mom left 10 days after it began to rain. So I'm guessing 10 days after the wards were broken and the Tataragami was like released.
Honestly, pretty quick.
Yeah.
It sounds like it should take more time, but like that just means everybody starts descending into madness like really, really.
I don't know. I'm guessing like if it's a curse left over from a god,
I mean, it's probably
like
pretty potent.
one of those fast acting curses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are the worst.
When they advertise medicines, like, takes effect nearly minutes after taking it. Like, people will die within minutes. And then he mentions that, like, the villagers, setting up his father's tombstone. And then it says that his mom was very angry and believed he was still alive. So part of the reason why she leaves is to go find him. Yeah, so that's kind of why she left Chuji. I don't know why she didn't just bring him with her, but that's kind of why she leaves initially. He also mentions Washizu. He used to be a nice person, but like now he stares at my house from a distance and talks to himself. And he's scared of Washizu, which, me too, man. He scares me, but he's dead now. And then he also mentions that Washizu built shrine to pacify the serpent's soul. And this made me think of like the Narukami pillars, but the Narukami pillars have been there for like many, many years, probably like almost 2000. So it's definitely not those. But I'm wondering if he maybe built the outsider shrines, like the shrine that he's like sitting at, because he's praying to whatever like this voice in his head is. And I'm pretty sure that Yashiori Island doesn't have shrines to the Orobashi because the only people that worship the Orobashi are the people from Watatsumi. And if it says an outsider shrine, it's probably not one of the shrines that's from the people of Narukami, like to pray to the shogun, because like those are like different shrines,
See, when he said he built a shrine, I assumed it was one of the shrines that, like, where the mother prays. If you walk
Yeah.
a little bit to the right, there's one that says it gives off a creepy vibe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's possible. It says that he's built multiple.
Mm.
So he could have built that one as well. Like, I do know what shrine you're talking about. It's the one that you have to, like, investigate for him or
Yeah.
something. Because his mom prays there. So I don't know.
That's the one that he. But then if there's one that's just directly to the right of it, and that one
Oh,
is the one that gives you a creepy vibe when you go to it.
yeah. Maybe he's built, like, these creepy shrines. But Chuji
It's
mentions
just-
that he built these, like, kind of after he went insane. So I'm wondering if he's building these shrines to, like, whatever this evil spirit that's, like, talking to him is. Oh my god, wait.
Maybe.
I
What?
didn't do this, but I was like, what if you, like, marked them on a map? And, like, what if they made, like, a shape or something? And, like, there was some kind of significance. Like, you triangulate the
The
shrines.
like
Yeah.
all of them all over the island.
Well, like, the bad ones.
Oh, the ones with creepy vibes and stuff.
Yeah. Because there are
Maybe.
certain shrines that have, like, people sitting at them, and they've got, like, the little smoke on it.
Just to do that later.
I'll do it some other time. Not now. So after talking to Chuji, though, he basically just keeps asking about his mom, and then you can investigate things to try to help him. And then he ends up just going all over the island until eventually he goes to Shneznaya for some reason. And then you don't see him again. He's on his way to Shneznaya. His mom is on her way to Sumeru. His dad is probably still in
knows
Inazuma
where.
somewhere.
I feel bad for him.
I know.
Other thing, the shrine that was built for Chuji's dad that his mom didn't believe was actually, didn't believe that he was dead. She still went and prayed and always left sakura blooms. And when you go to investigate, you find those same blooms. And I think Paimon mentions that they're in kind of a different pattern or like a strange pattern.
I vaguely
and
remember.
Yeah, and like you tell Chuji, but you don't get to see him like actually go and look. So I always wondered, like, did his mother leave him some kind of a message in the sakura blooms? Because they were in such a strange pattern. You don't get to actually see him go investigate or anything. But
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting that Paimon specifically notes that they were in a particular pattern, but there's no like rhyme or reason why she says it.
Yeah, there's actually, so there's this thing called a unsealed letter, and it's a letter to Chuji from his mom, and you can find it just like in the Jakotsu mine, and
No.
I guess I'll
Why
just
is it
read
in
it.
mine?
I
Do you
don't
think
know.
his dad accidentally had it and left it there?
I have no idea because it's from his mom. So yeah, I don't know why she's in the mines. Maybe she just like went looking for, because her husband was a miner, so maybe she went looking for him in there or something. But I guess I'll just read it. It says, "To my beloved son, Zushi Chuji. If you're reading this letter, I hope you can forgive me. Leaving you makes my heart ache, but I have no other choice. Please do not give up on hope in life or in me, just as we've never once given up hope that your father, my husband, is alive. The Tataragami presence on the island is very dangerous, so please take good care of yourself. With the Tataragami's destruction, the war should soon come to an end. When that time comes, the two warring sides will probably lay down their arms and initiate a joint effort to clean up the corruption on this island. It's just too bad that I most likely won't be there to see it happen. You may run into many people who want to take advantage of you or hurt you in the days to come, but do not stop believing in others because of this. There are always more good than bad people out there. Everything will get better once this war ends. But please, please do not follow my footsteps or rush to meet me. This is something that I am asking of you as your mother. Please keep believing and continue to hold out hope for my return. I will be back, and I will personally apologize to both you and your father. Please wait for the coming of that day." The thing is, you can't give Chuji this letter for some reason.
Okay, first of all, the only thing I have to say is, why the heck is she referring to your father, my husband?
My husband.
Why would you say that to your child?
Your father, specifically my husband.
My
You know.
husband. Yeah, and the other thing I was going to ask is, like, does Chuji ever actually get to read the letter? If it's in the
No,
line?
you can't give it to him for some reason.
That's
Like,
so sad.
I don't know why. You can't
Are you
give
sure
it
he
to him.
hasn't already read it to, like, himself?
I'm pretty sure he hasn't read it because he has so many like questions. Every time you talk to him, he's like, "Have you heard anything of my mother?" And then you answer like, "No." And he's like, "Aw, I guess I'll just go to Shneznaya." Yeah.
She did say not to follow her footsteps, so at
Well,
least
he's
he
not.
decided not.
Yeah.
I know, at least he decided not to go to Sumeru.
Uh-huh. That'd be funny though if they ended up in the same place. She's just like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "I don't know."
No, why Shneznaya? Why is that where
I
you
think
decide
he
you want to
mentioned
go?
something about it, but honestly, I don't remember. Maybe he just wants to see the snow. He's like, "Ah, yeah, snowmen.
Juju makes me sad.
I know, I feel
Like
so
hearing
bad
his
for
story
Chuji.
is really depressing.
But in Chuji's mom's letter, it seems kind of foreshadowing, where it says, like, with the Tataragami's destruction, the war should soon come to an end, and then says how, like, both sides of the war will come to, like, clean the corruption. And I'm like, well, what if they have to fight something, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, like some corrupted monster, and they have to join forces to defeat it.
like the corrupted monster that the weird
Yeah.
guy's talking about.
Whatever the heck this evil spirit is. So, still not through all my notes. So, that was all the notes that I took regarding just the stuff in the game. And then the live stream happened. So, I took some notes as I was watching the trailer. And I took more notes regarding, like, other things, but not all of it was relevant to, like, the Tataragami stuff. So I guess I'll just skip through.
Yeah.
So the first thing is that Kokomi, in the trailer, she mentions how, like, the first shrine to the Orobashi was not located on Sangonomiya. It was located somewhere else on the island, but it was abandoned after the Orobashi died. And then some soldier mentions some accelerated aging amongst their people. And that made me think of, like, maybe the Tataragami's curse is spreading in its effect.
So, like, not just making you insane, but also making you older?
Well, just, like, getting sick. Because, like, I don't know, like deteriorate? I don't know.
Oh, like turning to filth, like the kitsune?
Yeah, I don't know. Not good things. Because then after this, she mentions that the Kuju clan, or someone mentions how the Kuju clan is working with the Fatui. And this makes me think to Tatara Tales, the quest, because
The Fatui are the ones that are all around the wards.
I know you haven't finished the whole thing, but, you know, the quest starts because one of the shrine maidens mentions how the Tataragami has somehow spread so far as to start affecting the sacred sakura, which is all the way on Narukami Island. And then they say that the Tataragami core, which is, you know, the source of all the power in the Mikage furnace, and that has unlimited energy, is basically, like, malfunctioned and stopped working. And it describes this also as the part that stored the corrupt Tataragami energy, and that it became extremely unstable. So it specifically says corrupt Tataragami energy, which stands out to me. And then Xavier, that engineer, he says, except for me, I'm a special case in regards to being unaffected by the Tataragami.
Oh, how convenient.
Which
for you,
again,
Vincent.
I'm wondering if it is important or if it's just for convenience sake so that you can have someone do the quest with you. And as you do this, you find out that the Fatui are the ones creating the rifts in the force field dome, which Xavier created to hold in the Tataragami to keep it sealed inside. And then Xavier mentions that the Tataragami that's inside wouldn't treat the Sangonomiya or the shogunate any differently if it were to escape, which is the second time that someone mentions that this Tataragami does not play favorites. Like, it just affects everyone, even its own people that worship the Orobashi. Another thing that stands out is that one of the options to reply to him during this whole conversation is that the traveler asks, could the Fatui be collecting the energy from the Tataragami? Which could be likely. They are, you know, infiltrating this place. So
Sounds like it.
Xavier creates this thing called a purifying machine, which uses crystal marrow to function. And then he does some other experiments, but that's unimportant. And basically he's trying to purify, you know, the Mikage furnace so that it can function again and be safe to work in. And when you go to activate it to purify the core, you find the Fatui that are gathered there. And while you're talking to Xavier, he mentions how, like, the Fatui might, like, use, you know, the energy to, like, create weapons. Like, he specifically jokes about they might shove it into some ruin guard, causing it to go berserk and send us all flying. It's clearly very powerful stuff. But then, and I quote, he says, that legendary serpent might use this opportunity to resurrect itself. And he says it in a joking manner where he's just like, that couldn't actually happen. But this seems like a little foreshadowing, or like directly stating. So it's very suspicious and makes me wonder, like, is it truly gonna resurrect itself, you know, in like a corrupt
Sounds like
form?
it just sounds to me like the next update's going to be like corrupt Orobashi.
Yeah, like
Everyone
after,
joined together to fight.
yeah, like after we deal with whatever's happening with the Shogun. Yeah, it's just very, very suspicious. And the Fatui are like really active in this, which is very suspicious. And then in a different quest, which is kind of a minor one, called Sakura Arborism. This just also serves as another example where the Fatui is messing with different energies, not specifically the Tataragami. Basically, in this quest, the Fatui and the treasure hoarders are working together to steal power from the Thunder Sakura, which are those trees that shoot you with lightning when you get close to them. And the reason that they do that is because of what the Fatui's doing to them. Like, they don't normally do that. Once you finish that quest and you get rid of the Fatui, they don't shock you anymore when you get near them. It's just like, yeah, it's because of the effects of the Fatui. Moving on in the trailer, it mentions that the Kujo clan is working with the Fatui. So that perhaps gives them like more access to the Tataragami energy, and like so that they can run experiments. Because then you see Signora and she just kind of comes out of nowhere. And Paimon says Signora is the one behind all this. And I'm like, what is this? What's happening? What is the this that Paimon's referring to? And I didn't notice this at first, but if you look at like in the trailer, in the cutscene where Signora is like, you know, doing her transformation thing, in the background, you can see a very tiny Raiden Shogun. Like, she's there. She's just standing in the background, like...
Oh, she's with you?
She's behind Signora.
So is she with Signora in that case?
And I have no idea. Like, I was just so confused. I was like, I don't think Raiden is gonna just hand over her Gnosis, right?
I didn't think so either.
But she's standing with Signora, so I'm like, why is she doing that? Like, maybe she's being, like, blackmailed or something? Maybe, because there have already been, like, theories that maybe she's already had her Gnosis taken away, which is why she hasn't given out any electrovisions for, like, the past year or so.
Yeah.
I don't know how true that would be, but, you know, perhaps they're, like, manipulating her. But
yeah, maybe. I had assumed that because she was hearing about what happened with Fenty and Zhongli, she was, like, holding herself in so that she wouldn't get taken.
Yeah, that's what I figured, but, like, that's because it falls in line with, like, when the Vision Hunt Decree and the Sakoko Decree happened. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on with Signora and why Raiden's just going along with it, because she's legit just standing there. Also,
yeah, there she is.
Also, I don't know where the heck this is, but, like, it seems like they're in some kind of official building, because it's got, like,
that's a big old electro symbol in the back.
That's a huge electro symbol, and it looks like a really fancy building. So, I don't know, perhaps the Fatui are working with, like, the Shogun. I don't know why exactly, but...
I assume all will become clear in the next update.
Yeah, all soon will be revealed.
Gotta wait the 2 more days.
Going further in, we're just gonna ignore the part where Kazuha seems to be, struggling. I hope he doesn't die. I really don't want Kazuha to die.
I was not expecting it to be a death so soon. You know, like, I
know.
It seems strange to me. And for it to be Kazuha when everyone was like, it's gonna be Lisa.
We just met him.
Yeah, that's true. He hasn't even been around for that long.
I know. He's gonna join his friend in the afterlife. This is also kind of unrelated, but, like, the whole thing with, like, the Vision statue, you know, where it's lighting up, like, I'm curious what that is. But anyways, going to the end of the trailer, before it gets into the Moonchase Festival, we're not going to talk about that, because that's really irrelevant. The people in Liyue are literally just hosting a cooking competition.
That is so funny to me. Like, this civil war going on in Inazuma, and over there, cooking! A food festival.
Zhangling's just like, will you be my sous chef? So at the end of the Inazuma part of the trailer, we have Scaramouche.
Right,
and
he's in there.
I don't know the context of what's happening, but he's, like, standing over us, and we're, like, dying or something. We're, like, passing out, and there's, like, purple smoke around us and stuff, much like with the Tataragami's influence. And it seems like Scaramouche is also unaffected by it, and it seems like he's, like, not really being able to control it, but, like, he's using it for something. So I'm wondering if, like, maybe he and, like, the Fatui are, like, using this energy from the Tataragami. Like, they've taken this Tataragami energy, this corrupted energy, and are, like, using it for, like, their own nefarious purposes.
Is that their way of, like, taking over the rest of the world?
I don't know. I also find his line where he's like, eternity stretches things out over a long time, but each moment within it becomes all the more fragile. I feel that's more like a jab to, like, the Shogun, but, like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's an interesting quote.
It is.
quite deep, quite powerful. Yeah, I
It
feel
really
like
makes you think.
yeah, like the energy that's happening there, it reminds me a lot of like the Tataragami, like just with the colors and everything, like the visuals that are going on. It could be completely unrelated, and they just decided to throw in smoke. They were like, "Hey, we have this stuff already rendered and everything. We just
Yeah,
need to
maybe they were
toss
just
it in."
like, smoke looks cool.
Uh-huh.
Purple is the color of Inazuma.
Uh-huh.
We're good to
Because
go.
it pretty much looks the same as like the smoke from Shao's story quest with the random hilly churls.
Yeah, no, I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, where like those hilly churls are just like smoking. So they could have just reused the effects. Moving on from the trailer, they show a screenshot of like the Masujin Gorge, and it describes how like Yashiori Island was completely destroyed during the Archon War, and then it mentions how the Shogun lost something really dear to her. And the way that the conversation is happening, it sounds like they're talking about the Archon War, but it seems more like they're referring to the Tengu general, which she lost from the war with the Orobashi. So the timeline is like kind of really weird and wacky. It could just be that the events have happened so close together that like it's kind of mushy, little hazy, but yeah, it's just a little weird. And then one of the voice actors, I forgot who, mentions that this might be the catalyst behind the Vision Hunt decree. I know it's just the voice actors talking, but the way that the live streams are, they're like very, very clearly scripted. So I'm pretty sure they were told to say that, which makes me feel like it's important. So yeah, I don't know. And then it shows like a cutscene with Scaramouche, and it sounds like he's captured us or something. And again, it just feels like it seems like he's utilizing like the energy from the Tataragami or something. There's a lot happening.
I'm curious to see how much of it actually comes true.
I know. I have a feeling it's not gonna focus on any of this kind of stuff in the next update, but perhaps the one after it. You know, like 2.2. Because I feel like the update that's coming out, you know, in a few days, is gonna focus more on like the actual like Archons, like with our fight more with like Ball and the Fichui, and like not whatever's happening with the Orobashi. But there's so much like stuff about it that I feel like it's gonna become relevant. Yeah, at some point.
Maybe at the end, that'll be the cliffhanger.
Yeah, I feel like this, whatever happens with the Orobashi is probably gonna come around like after, like, you know how like the thing with Azdaha or Ajdaha like happened, you know, obviously a long time after the Liyue story quest was done. Like it. Oh wait, maybe what if this is a part of like Raiden's story quest? Because like the thing with Ajdaha is part of Zhang Li's story quest.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
Yeah, so maybe it has to do with like a character. Who knows? Or maybe Kokomi's. It is her god after all. Have to wait and see. Final thoughts. I have like two kind of ideas. The first one is that, which I think is less likely, has to do with the Fatui, like perhaps using this Tataragami energy to reawaken whatever this corrupted version of the Orobashi is. Because they have so many experiments going on with the gods, with like, you know, the Archon residue that I mentioned earlier, and then they're conspiring, you know, with the Shogun and stuff. And if they're conspiring with the Shogun and the Kujo clan, that gives them access to like experimenting with the Tataragami. And it seems like the Kujo clan, because in the trailer, Sara mentions that she'll do anything to protect her people. So it seems like she is not above, you know, using whatever this is to beat the resistance if it means protecting her clan and her shogun. I feel like this is the less likely thing, or at least I hope it doesn't happen, because I think it would be very bad writing to reuse the exact same plotline of the Fatui reawakening of like
I know
old
what you
god.
mean.
If all this happens because of the Fatui's
I know that the Fatui are
interference.
supposed to be the masterminds.
Yeah.
Like in general, like they're always going to be the bad guy, but it would be more interesting if there was something else
happens.
besides.
Another thing is that with Osile, which is the god that child awoke to destroy Liyue, they had something to gain out of that. Like Signora had specifically done that as a test for the people of Liyue to see if they could survive without Zhongli acting as the Archon. And as a result of that, she gained his gnosis. Like they got a gnosis out of that. Awakening the Orobashi, there's nothing to gain from that. If the Raiden Shogun killed it like the first time, even in like a corrupt form, I don't know if it's strong enough to like defeat her and that they can take her gnosis or anything if that was the plan. And then also there's nothing to gain of the Orobashi just destroying the lands in general. So like it just doesn't, there's like no clear motive behind why they would do that. But
Yeah.
I do think that they're just using this energy as like experiments, but I don't think that they have anything to do with like the Orobashi and like the voices in people's heads.
No, I think all of that is genuinely just a side effect. Like there, it
Yeah.
wasn't planned by the Fatui. I think
Yeah.
it's just because they're messing
Mhm.
with this energy, it's going
Yeah.
to have unintended consequences.
Yeah, it's possible that the Fatui's interference though has caused like some stronger corruption or something. But what I think is happening is that I think that the Tataragami energy has just been corrupted like over time, likely due to the abyss like growing in power, and that it has somehow created like this new like corrupt evil consciousness out of like what once was the original Orobashi. And that that's like the voice that people are hearing, that like whoever he is, and that it's trying to like reawaken itself. And like I don't know what exactly is happening with like the people that are like immune to it. I think maybe they might be using them as like a, they might want to use them as like maybe a vessel to hold like this new soul or something, because like if they can withstand the Tatsugami's energy without like just dying, you know, that makes them like
Right.
prime candidates, specifically Chuji's mom, with like how they mentioned like that it was just flowing freely inside of her. Do you have anything to add?
I think it's very interesting to think about. I agree with you that there's too much mention about the Orobashi for it to not come up.
Yeah.
And I think that at some point,
Yeah.
maybe like you said, maybe not this next update, but I think that the Orobashi, or at least some kind of form of Orobashi, will probably come into play,
Yeah.
and will probably be some kind of monster that we have to fight.
New weekly boss. Because like the Orobashi like is brought up in like multiple, or like the Orobashi and the Tataragami are brought up in numerous quests, like not just one, not just the Orobashi's legacy quest. And then it's relevant in just like a lot of random things that are scattered throughout the islands. And like going back to Ishaha, like before he was released and stuff, like there was like that little girl that like hinted at like there was something awakening. And then you can look at that gravestone that's there that was like talking about the dragon that lived beneath the tree or something.
I was just gonna say, I'm curious about what they're gonna do with Raiden and her losing her gnosis, because I mean, you know it's gonna
No.
happen. That's kind of the theme. She's
Yeah.
gonna have it either taken away from her. I just can't see her giving it up freely, or having already given it up. I mean, maybe we're wrong, but I just feel like she looks for power so much, you know? Like she's continuously trying to make herself stronger.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe you could argue that the reason she's so obsessed with visions and like taking them is because she no longer has a gnosis, and so since she's lost like that power of the
Like
gods,
trying to regain like
she's trying to
her
get
old
it
powers.
back
Mhm.
from other visions
also-
or like other handouts.
Yeah. I'm also
But what
curious,
were you gonna
though,
say?
whenever she loses her gnosis, though, like I feel like that could be like a new beginning for her, as like accepting that like nothing. I know that she's the Archon of Eternity, so it's kind of ironic, but like is anything truly eternal? And like maybe she has to cope with the fact that like her own life is ending. But like in a way, isn't that kind of like, I don't know, like enlightening? Like she no
Freeing?
longer has like, yeah, like she no longer has to live through the suffering of losing everyone that she cares about, because she's outlives them all, because she can finally join her old friends and stuff. I mean, that's kind of a sad thought, but like I feel like living forever is one of like, it's so sad. I wouldn't want to live forever.
No, immortality sounds absolutely terrible.
Like, unless everyone that you cared about was also immortal.
Yeah, in which case it's just like a lifelong party.
Then you're like just chilling.
But no, if you had to continuously watch everybody that you loved die,
I know.
it would. I couldn't imagine going through that.
Yeah, that's so sad. Like,
Also,
yeah.
oh sorry, no, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, I'm wondering if like that has to do with anything with like the statue that she made, because like so I mentioned this before, but like, you know, the Vision statue, it doesn't look like her.
Yeah,
Like
it does
it's got
look
different
strange.
bangs. I'm wondering if maybe that was the old Archon or something. Because like, so like in her teaser trailer, like after her friends die, it shows her like reaching for someone, and like it could
Yes.
just be her from a past time.
Yeah, because they have the same hair. Like
yeah,
the
they
long
look
braid in
so
the back.
similar. And then like someone pointed out that like her outfit looks a lot like the outfit from like when Kazuha was talking about how his friend died. and it shows
you're
like the
right.
shogun and her robes are really long and stuff. So it could just be her in the past, like when she was still like happy, or like yeah, like when she still had her friends and when she wasn't so sad and lonely. If that were so, like maybe the vision statue is like of the old Archon or something, and as tribute, because like I know we don't really know much about what it's like for like a new Archon to take the place of an old one, because like we haven't up until now. Like Raiden's the only one who's experienced that, because Venti and Zhongli are both the original Archons that won the Archon War. They're like the only two that are still the originals amongst the seven. So we don't know if like when an Archon dies, like if the new one is like chosen by them, or if like they also have to fight for a seat
Yeah,
for
that's
like
why
that
I
position.
was saying that I was curious about
Yeah.
how the transition of power went in the other countries.
Yeah, like does she know the old Archon, or like I'm guessing though that she at least like worships the old Electro Archon, because I forgot where it mentions it, but it specifically mentions that like people with visions also have the opportunity to become Archons. Like they are like the chosen ones. Obviously, like the current one was likely an Electrovision wielder. The old one died, but like yeah, I don't know. I'm curious what the statue does, because it seems like she's harnessing the energy from the visions for
Right.
some reason. Why? We don't know.
The other thing
Not
I'm
yet.
just curious about is what Yai has to do. Yai
Oh
Miko.
yeah.
Because she's someone that, honestly, I don't really care much about her. I don't really care for her.
Yeah, she mentions something like with she keeps talking about ambition, which I know is like referring to like the
That's
visions.
The force behind the visions.
But then she says like that line that's like, do you think your ambition is enough to shake A's will? Which the Archon's name being A is so funny to me. I mentioned that like the Archons are kind of not based on, but they resemble characters from MiHoYo's other game, Honkai Impact. So the character that Raiden's inspired by is named Mei, spelled M-E-I.
They were real creative, weren't they, with that one?
I know, right? I just remembered that Venti's character that he's like his design is based on was named Wendy. So Wendy, Venti. They're getting really creative with these names. I also saw someone else point out, like, because I don't necessarily believe in this theory, but there is a big theory that like Scaramouche is like a failed vessel for like, I don't know, the spirit, the soul, the whatever of the Electro Archon. Which I don't know what that means, but anyways, because
The Fatui were trying to make him the Electro
like
Archon?
well, someone was trying to make like him like I said, I don't really believe in this, but like so Raiden's real name is A. Scaramouche we don't know his real name because Scaramouche is like his Fatui title, right? Like how Child is Tartaglia and then Signora is Signora. And someone pointed out that if his real name is like N, like E-N, like it could possibly be spelled out as like E-I-E-N, which in Japanese, the like kanji, I think it's called, those symbols together mean eternity. But also
so maybe they're like siblings?
Yeah, because like again, I don't really believe it. Maybe it is true though, because like Scaramouche does have like the same eye and hair color as she does, kind of.
True. I guess I just kind of assumed it was because.
But I don't know. It seems kind of wacky to me.
It would be interesting. I guess
Would
we'll
be
find
interesting.
out soon.
He's a weird fellow.
The Electro Archon. The other one became one of the most trusted servants of the
Saritsa. It's a whole thing. It's weird. But I also saw people pointing out that the kanji that they wrote for A and like because it works in Chinese too or something. So like the Chinese symbol is different than the one that's used in the word for eternity. So it's probably not that. But that's whatever.
I think that about wraps up things for tonight.
It's been a long.
Yeah, it's been a long discussion.
Yeah.
Lots to process and think about. A lot of answers that I'm sure will be answered in like a couple of days, but
I know.
it's still fun to theorize what we don't know.
But we don't know a lot about the Orobashi because it's likely not coming in the next update. I feel like they would have showed it in the trailer if that were the case.
Just really, really want to surprise you. It's not like they showed wait, never mind. I was about to say the Leeway trailer.
Actually, so I was curious Because, we didn't start playing until that update, like until Zhongli's
Yeah.
banner. So the first update was just when the game came out. And then the second update was when Child and Zhongli were added. And I guess at that point was when the end of the Lie Archon quest happened. And I went back and watched the 1.1 trailer. And it literally just gives away that Child is with the Fatui, that he's like, you have to fight him. And then it kind of shows snippets of the fight with Osile.
Yeah, that's it. Osile. I was wondering if they had it in the trailer or not.
And
Maybe they've just learned that, like, you probably shouldn't give away
Yeah.
everything that goes on.
we've said final thoughts like 3 times.
Oh, I know. It's time to go.
So
Anyway,
any final
that's all.
thoughts?
Final thoughts? I'm excited for the update. I need to do a lot more quests. I'm really slacking. I'm worried I don't have enough gems
Oh, me too.
to roll. Because I want both Ball and Kokomi.
I know.
But then
same.
also, Albedo was supposed to come out soon, and like, if I don't get him, I'm gonna, I don't know, I'm gonna rage.
We'll start Albedo fun.
I might not be a free-to-play player anymore if I
Hey, you
don't
could
get
just
Albedo.
buy one welcome.
But I like having the status
I know
of
the
free-to-play.
the feeling of
It's a-
being free to play.
It's a matter of pride.
Pride,
And also,
yeah.
like, it's a game, you know?
The
Like,
same.
I really need to spend.
You're like,
No.
do I really need to spend money? Yeah, I only have
No,
enough for
you
one
don't.
pity.
Oh,
So
I
I'm
have
like,
enough for 2.
if I go to pity for Ball, I will have nothing for Kokomi. I think I have enough for like less than 10 rolls as of now for Kokomi. I am happy though that at least I know that I'm gonna get Ball.
Yeah, if I lose the 50-50 the first time, I'm not rolling on Ball anymore. I'm
Really?
saving it for Kokomi.
You're just gonna save
Yeah.
for Kokomi?
Plus, I just rolled Kaching. So, like,
That's true.
I just got an Electro 5-star. Well, I think it's about time to close up the juice bar for the night.
It's closing time. Thank you for coming on this very long
Yes.
journey with
sorry.
us.
There's a lot to talk about.
Mhm.
Hopefully, if you did stick out till the end, you found it interesting.
Yeah,
Learned a little something.
a lot of questions left unanswered, but
But
maybe one
we
day,
promise that they will probably get answered.
hopefully. I want to know what
Hopefully.
happens. Yeah.
There won't be another Dung Dung's father situation where you're just like, okay,
Yeah,
never know.
we'll never know. Hopefully, because this seems to be playing like an important role in things, like it'll be answered eventually.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
Well, yeah.
farewell, friends.
Good night.
Sleep tight.
Yep. See y'all later.
We know.
Good-
Sorry,
Are you okay?
I choked on my water. We'll cut it out in post.